You probably started your day today feeling exactly the weight you carry on your shoulders. A feeling that no matter how hard you try to be, right? No matter how hard you strive to follow every principle you consider sacred, God's silence seems to grow ever more deafening. It's a silent pain, one you don't share with anyone at church because you're afraid they'll think your faith is shaken, but deep down, when the bedroom door closes, you wonder if your effort isn't in vain. You feel like someone running on a treadmill, sweating, expending energy, watching the time pass but not getting anywhere. And the frustration grows because you feel your best isn't enough. But what if I told you that this weariness, this tireless desire to be good, to always get it right, to fulfill every detail of an expectation that no one imposed on you, but that you adopted as your own, is exactly the barrier you yourself built? What I'm going to show you today goes against everything you've heard so far. A radical subversion of how you see your relationship with the sacred. Your exhaustion isn't a sign of lack of faith, and your pursuit of being good isn't the path to closeness, but rather the veil blocking your vision. What's happening is that you're trying to buy something that's already been paid for, trying to reach through your own merit, a place that can only be accessed through rest. The guilt you feel for not being perfect doesn't come from God. It comes from a system you yourself have nurtured, trying to be the source of your own holiness. I want to invite you to let go of this heavy armor you wear every day, because God isn't waiting for your best performance. He's waiting for your truth, and your truth right now is that you're exhausted from being so good and yet feeling so empty. Imagine two people walking along a steep trail toward the summit of a mountain where God's presence is said to be absolutely revealed. The first person, let's call him Marcos, carries a gigantic backpack full of sacrificial stones, rules, codes of conduct, and an endless list of moral tasks. Each of Marcos's steps is a reminder of how good he needs to be worthy of that climb. He takes care of every detail, measures every gesture, analyzes every thought before it becomes an action, fearing that any imperfection will cause him to slip and fall. He is so focused on maintaining perfect posture that his eyes never manage to look at the horizon. He is fixed on his own feet, sweating profusely, his heart racing with the fear of failure. Marcos believes that the heavier the effort, the more authentic his surrender will be, so he accumulates more stones in his backpack, believing that this anchors him when in reality it only consumes him. The second person, Anna, started the same trail, but something happened along the way. Anna also wanted to reach the top. She also desired that proximity, but she realized that her own fragility was a weight she couldn't carry. In a moment of brutal honesty, in the middle of the trail, Anna simply stopped, took off her backpack, and left all the stones behind. She didn't give up the climb, she gave up the effort of being someone she wasn't. Anna realized that the mountaintop wasn't a reward for the physical effort of the hike, but a gift for those who accepted being carried by the very expectations of the one who created them. She continues climbing, but now her step is light. Her gaze is fixed on the light coming from above, and her smile isn't that of someone who overcame a challenge, but of someone who was reached by a love that doesn't demand medals. Marcos remains down below, still struggling with the weight of his choices, convinced that his effort is the only currency worth anything. The difference between the two isn't their destination, it's what they carried in their baggage. Marcos carries himself as the great savior of his own story, while Anna carried only her vulnerability. What separates you from God today is not your sin, but your self-righteousness, that desperate need to be too good, to be the protagonist of your own redemption process. Forgetting that, in reality, you are just a guest at a table already set for those who know they have nothing to offer. There is an episode in the scriptures that perfectly illustrates this tension. Look at the scene of the Pharisee and the tax collector, but don't look at it with the eyes of someone who has heard this story so many times that it has lost its impact. Visualize the environment. The temple was a place of power, of status, a setting where performance was the rule of the game. The Pharisee enters with firm steps, shoulders raised, a presence that occupies the space, bringing with him a list of deeds that would justify any access to the sacred. He positions himself there in the center where everyone can see, and begins his prayer, which is not a conversation, it is a report of competence. He details how righteous he is, how much he obeys the laws, how different he is from others. That man was not there to find God. He was there to show off before himself and society, using God as a stage. The tension is palpable because that man represented the height of human discipline, the pinnacle of self-effort goodness. In contrast, Focus your gaze on that man who barely dares to lift his face, who places himself in the back, a place that no one there would consider worthy of someone important. He has no record of deeds, he has no justifications. His only phrase is a cry for help, an admission that between him and the sacred there is an abyss he cannot cross. The subversion happens when the verdict is given. The one who strove so hard to be too good leaves exactly as he entered, burdened with the weight of his own self-sufficiency, while the other goes home justified. The Pharisee lost touch with the divine because he was too busy occupying his own place. He wanted to be the master of his own holiness, and when you become the source of your goodness, you inevitably become your own idol. The story is not about being evil. It's about the presumption of believing that your goodness is what keeps heaven open for you. God doesn't turn away from you because you're not good enough. God becomes inaccessible to those who believe they are already good enough and don't need a redeemer. Let's deconstruct this performance logic using a metaphor that makes sense in the modern world. Imagine that your spiritual life is like a state-of-the-art smartphone you bought, an expensive device full of features that should be your primary connection to the world. You are convinced that for this device to function well and maintain a strong signal, you need to install hundreds of optimization apps, run memory cleaning processes every hour, manually adjust every network setting, and obsessively monitor battery usage. You live in constant tension, afraid that some background process will crash the system, that an uninstalled update will make your device obsolete. You spend your entire day managing the device instead of using it to communicate, to learn, to create. You have become a technician of your own system, and your anxiety is proportional to the complexity you have created. The divine principle, grace, functions like a factory-installed operating system, perfect, designed so that the connection is automatic and constant as long as the device is connected to a power source. Your attempt to be too good is like trying to manually route Wi-Fi signals, manually configuring each data packet, thinking that if you don't, the internet won't work. You're exhausting your soul's hardware trying to manage processes that should be automatic. The beauty is the high-speed network that's already active, and your relentless pursuit of performance is just noise preventing the connection from flowing smoothly. When you decide to stop trying to configure the system manually, you realize that the device always worked. The connection was never unstable. It was just your excessive intervention that caused the slowness. Being good isn't the work you do. It's the natural result of being connected to the right source. If you stop trying to fix the system, life flows with a lightness you didn't even know was possible. Religiosity is that task manager that makes you believe you're indispensable to the proper functioning of your purpose. While true, spirituality is the rest of someone who knows the burden has already been lifted and the system has already been configured. The diagnosis that you are living this pattern of error is clear, and it manifests itself in subtleties that you may ignore in your daily life. You feel an urgent need to apologize to God for failures that you know are not sins, but merely human limitations, as if He were holding a notebook waiting for you to make a mistake to lower your score. You live with a chronic feeling that your silence, your moments of rest, or your lack of ministerial activity is wasted time that will be charged for in the future. When something good happens in your life, your first thought is not gratitude but a cold analysis of what you did to deserve it, or a terrible fear that you didn't do enough to maintain that blessing. You feel like an impostor every time someone praises your righteousness because deep down, your goodness is a tiring performance and you know that at any moment the mask could fall. You get irritated by those who demonstrate freedom and lightness in their faith because it seems they are circumventing a system you strive so hard to follow, and this causes you deep envy, not of what they have, but of the peace they seem to carry without the same weight you carry. These symptoms are not signs that you are being punished. They are the red lights on your car's dashboard indicating that the engine is overheating because you are driving with the handbrake on. You are not being negligent. You are simply exhausted from an effort that was never asked for. These lights are trying to warn you that your belief system, based on merit, is not sustainable, and that the only way out is to stop, turn off the engine of anxiety, and allow the source to take control. The practical turning point, the one that changes your life in the course of your routine, doesn't involve any more religious steps, any new secret prayers or fasting disciplines. It begins in traffic when chaos surrounds you. Instead of praying for patience, which is just another performance task, try simply breathing and remembering that you are not in control of the situation. Accept your irritation, accept your mistakes, accept your humanity, and surrender it without the need for compensation. When washing dishes or performing a mechanical task at work, stop trying to turn these moments into a forced exercise in holiness. Just do it, knowing that God doesn't need you to suffer or strive to be noticed. The great change in mindset is understanding that your goodness is not something you build. It's something that flows from within when you stop trying to be the architect of your own righteousness. When you feel the weight of expectation, stop. Just stop for a minute. Tell yourself, I don't need to be who I'm trying to pretend to be. I am loved for my existence, not for my results. This phrase, spoken honestly in the midst of a tense meeting or in the silence of the night, is more powerful than any religious ritual. It is the liberation of those who realize that for God, being is far more valuable than doing. Rest is not a pause in your work. Rest is work. It is how you position yourself in life, knowing that the bill has already been paid and that you don't need to add interest or penalties on your own. Imagine yourself a few months from now living with this new mindset, where the need to prove your worth has disappeared, giving way to a presence that springs forth naturally. You are no longer Marcos, the one who carried unnecessary burdens, but now you walk with the lightness of someone who knows they don't need to prove anything to anyone. The anxiety that once consumed you upon waking has been replaced by a serene expectation, not of what you need to achieve, but of who you already are. The kindness that was once a heavy armor is now your own skin, something you no longer need to wear because there is no longer an internal conflict between your flaws and your nature. The people around you will notice the change, not because you changed your discourse, but because your peace has become contagious, because you finally stop trying to be your own savior. Life becomes an experience of discovery instead of a struggle for survival. To seal this commitment to stop being your own judge, I want you to write in the comments an affirmation that symbolizes this turning point. Grace is greater than my performance. Repeat this not as a mantra but as a truth you are choosing to believe from now on. If you know someone who is exhausted, someone who is dying trying to be too good for God, send this video to that person right now. This is an act of empathy, of liberation, a gesture that the burden can be lighter. And if you feel you need more moments like this to anchor your new journey, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because here we don't teach how to strive harder. We teach how to rest on the only path that truly matters. Your journey is just beginning, and what's to come is a freedom you can't even imagine.